This here is the Sony 70-200 f2.8 Mark II, and this is quickly becoming one of my favorite lenses for photography and video. Let me tell you why. First of all, this thing is small, it's light, and it's probably the most versatile telephoto lens I have ever used. The 70-200mm range is a really perfect fit for everyday shooting, whether it's photos or video. It's got a nice telephoto throw at 200mm, and then at 70mm, it's pretty versatile. So pair this with the trifecta, the 16-35, the 24-70, and the 70-200, and you're basically covered for your entire range. But I have found myself reaching for this more often when it comes to video, actually. One of the biggest reasons why this is quickly becoming one of my favorite lenses is not only because it has that nice range from 70-200, allowing us to get nice close-up detail shots of the things that we're working on, but it has no problem focusing in low light situations in video. In the past, some of the issues I've had with some of the other lenses that I have, some of the older ones, I've had trouble with those lenses autofocusing in the dark. It hunts a lot and it's really hard sometimes to get a sharp shot, defaulting you into manual focus, which is fine, but sometimes you just want the autofocus to work correctly, especially if you're just kind of doing a run and gun video. The thing that's made me fall in love with this lens is how fast it focuses in dimly lit situations with backlights. It's really snappy, the autofocus is really reliable. A couple of weeks ago, we shot some of these clips outside where we lit these shots at night. We had a backlit, and sometimes this type of lighting situation can be tough for other lenses to focus. I have the original 24-70 G Master lens, and that lens struggles a lot in these types of lighting situations with focusing, especially at 70mm. But that night when we were shooting this footage, I switched from the 24-70 to the 70-200 just to try to shoot at 70mm with hopefully some more reliability when it comes to autofocus. And this lens absolutely nailed it. It's not a lens I often think about using for video, but when I use it, it just blows me away, and it's starting to become a staple in my camera bag. Now, when I switched that lens off from the 24-70 to the 70-200, I was fully expecting to have way worse focusing issues because sometimes more telephoto lenses struggle more with autofocus, and I was pleasantly surprised that I did not have one issue. It was fast, it was snappy. I film videos of myself by myself a lot of times, so having reliable autofocus is so key. So when I experienced the delicious, perfect focus that this was giving me, I was thinking, you know what, this was a fantastic purchase, not only because it's reliable, but it's also pretty light, pretty small, and gives us a really nice focal range in the bag. When you zoom the lens, the telescoping feature happens inside the lens, so it doesn't shoot out like some of the other 70-200s. It's all happening inside the lens, which cuts down on the amount of dust that's going to be getting into this thing. Having the ability to shoot at f2.8 is also really helpful when it comes to video, giving you that extra stop of light down from, say, a 70-200 f4, which is what we had previously. Now, obviously, you have to be careful shooting telephoto focal lengths at 2.8 because that focal plane that you're going to get for things that are in focus is going to be a lot more shallow than, say, if you're shooting at 16mm. So shooting 200mm at 2.8 and you're shooting somebody's face, you better be sure that those eyes are in focus because the depth of field is going to fall off a lot more than it would actually than a wider lens. Oftentimes we might be pushing up towards the f4, f5.6 if we have enough light, but in situations where we don't have enough light, being able to get this lens down to 2.8 and let that extra stop of light in is super helpful. That also allows me to get my ISO down as low as possible. So if we're shooting in lower light situations where my ISO is already boosted, then that f2.8 aperture can let me decrease that ISO a little bit to get a cleaner image. Now I want to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, VERO. Now you might be wondering why I'm talking about another photo sharing app. Something I've come to discover is that VERO is much deeper than just another place to share your images. What I love about VERO is that it provides us a platform to cultivate our own community with no algorithms, no ads, and share things that we normally wouldn't get to share with you, or that the algorithm from other platforms may not show you. We never really get to talk about the books we're reading or the shows and movies that we're watching, and I'm able to share those things over on VERO and have fun conversations with you about the things that we love about certain shows. We also write a ton of articles for our website too, and with VERO we can share the links directly to our website with you alongside of photos and videos, which is really difficult to do anywhere else. But the thing I think I'm most excited about is the ability to be able to receive recommendations from you on places to stay, stay, visit, and eat in the comment section, and then having the ability to turn around and share the exact locations that we've traveled to so that you can try them out too. And that's a lot of fun. So if you're interested in joining our community over on VERO, getting access to some of our favorite travel content outside of these videos, and seeing our photography in full quality, I've left a link in the description box below. And if you're already on VERO, drop your handle in the comments so we can follow each other. We've been talking a lot about the 70-200 when it comes to video, but we haven't really talked a lot about it for photos. What I'm gonna do is drop a collection of images I've shot with the 70-200 over on VERO, and you can have a look at them in high quality with minimal compression and no force cropping. Thank you, VERO, for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to talking about some of the features of this lens. This lens also has a 77mm thread mount on the front, so that makes finding filters for this very easy because it's such a standard size. The other thing that's kind of nice about this is that it has this ring here, so if you're shooting on a tripod, you can easily switch to kind of portrait mode by mounting this section on the tripod, and that kind of mitigates some of the weird issues that you might have with certain types of tripods that don't do portrait mode very well. And you've got obviously your manual focus and your autofocus switch. This lens also has optical steady shot, which means that at 200mm, it's gonna look a lot better than if there was no in-lens stabilization at all. And that's something I kind of rely on when I'm shooting telephoto. One of the reasons why I wanted this lens in particular was not only for that f2.8 aperture, but was because it had the stabilization in the lens. I've had a couple of questions in the past from some of you who have reached out and asked, should I get the 70-200 f2.8 with the image stabilization, or am I okay to get the f4 version? And am I okay to get a 70-200 f4 without image stabilization? When we originally shot Canon, one of the first lenses we got was the Canon 70-200 f4 non-IS. So that's their IS for image stabilization. Sony calls it OSS for optical steady shot. And we had that lens probably for like 15 years, and I found that I just wasn't reaching for it because every time I did, I either thought I need an extra stop of light at f2.8, or I need that in-lens stabilization, especially for handheld shots. A lot of those handheld shots without image stabilization, and especially inside the body of the camera, can look really shaky. So it's often helpful to have either a camera body that has in-body stabilization or a lens that has stabilization, and sometimes it can be helpful to have both. In my opinion, if you're going to be going for a 70-200, I definitely opt for a version at least with image stabilization. F4 is fine if you need that extra stop of light. Definitely go down to the 2.8 version. Something I love about shooting with this lens for video is that if you're shooting a more telephoto focal length, say like 200mm, and you're shooting a subject and you're moving, what's in the background is going to look like it's moving a lot faster than it actually is because it has that appearance of being more zoomed in. So the background looks kind of bigger than it would at, say, 16mm. So if you're doing a slight panning kind of dolly shot, then that background is going to look a lot more exaggerated, like it's moving a lot faster. And that could be a really interesting look when it comes to mixing up your B-roll shots. If you're asking yourself, is the f2.8 image stabilized lens worth the extra money? I do believe it is. I definitely think that if I had my time back, I originally should have invested in that 2.8 image stabilized lens because I'd still probably have it in the bag today, and I would still probably be using it if I was shooting Canon still. This is a lens that's been living in my bag. I was a little worried when I picked it up because I loved it so much, but I was worried, am I going to use this lens? And it turns out, yes, I am using this a lot alongside my 16-35 f4, which is my favorite lens for run and gun style vlogs. If I'm going to be taking two lenses, this is definitely going to be one of them. If you're going to have gear in the bag, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but it should be stuff that you absolutely love that gets you excited to shoot, and this definitely gets me excited to shoot. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you next Sunday for another video. Yep, I forgot to record. Forgot to record and just shot this entire thing without recording. Yeah. Okay.